Welcome to Success Matters. In a world where job security and corporate stability are often considered the ultimate goals, some individuals dare to break free from the norm to pursue their true passions. Harriet le Seve, a remarkable woman with a burning desire for change and empowerment, left the safety and security of her corporate job to found the EMPWR METHOD, flipping the script of the traditional fitness program on its head. Starting her own business was no small feat. Harriet was burnt out from her job and took 6 months out to redesign her life. During this time, she worked as a receptionist at her gym, rising at 4:30 in the morning to go and open it, clearing away towels and cleaning down machines. However, she was determined to see her dream come to fruition. And then COVID hit. With people taking up running in place of the gym, she pivoted to become a running coach, all the while working on her EMPWR method. Harriet's mission is simple: to empower women to build a new life full of confidence and courage. Her journey is an inspiring testament to the power of following your heart and the pursuit of a dream that empowers others along the way. Well, Harriet, thank you very much for joining Success Matters. We met many moons ago when you entered the world of corporate after your graduation, and you then moved on from being in the corporate world to doing something completely different. So let's start with that. What was it that made the change? What's your journey been like around that?
Yeah, awesome. So the very small questions first, Spencer.
Yes, that's right. The easy one to start with.
Amazing. So you're exactly right. So obviously I started off at Verizon actually when I was 21, 22, which seems a very long time ago now that I'm 30.
Right.
And was in the corporate world for 4 years in total before making the change to start my own business.
Mm-hmm.
And starting my own business was never something that I had initially planned throughout uni or anything like that. But I think upon entering the corporate world, I felt as though I was learning so many skills and then at the same time really developing my own passion for fitness. And I just had a bit of a light bulb moment when I was about 24, 25, when I felt like I was getting quite good at being an account manager, but it was just something I'd kind of fallen into. And I almost scared myself a little bit because I could see myself going down the path and staying within the corporate role that I'd never really, perhaps I'd never fully thought that would be my entire career. Then I took this moment where I thought, well, I know that I love fitness so much. If not now, then when?
Okay.
And just took the plunge and took 6 months off work completely to kind of flesh out my own, business plan, I suppose. And then began my own fitness company in 2019.
Wow. Okay. So was there a moment, I very much get what you're saying, that you can end up on that railway track, right? That is the corporate life ahead of you. Was there a moment where you thought, or was there an event or something that made you stop and say, actually, is this really for me? And what would I rather be doing? What was that trigger?
Okay, so I'm going to be completely honest with you, Sanjay.
Mm-hmm.
There was a specific meeting I was in, and this wasn't at Verizon. This was a company I joined after I left Verizon.
Right.
And the meeting was about call center technologies.
Okay.
And I remember suddenly realizing that I really cared about call center technologies. And I just thought to myself, like, no, you don't. This isn't you. And I think I'm a really passionate person and I love people and I love getting to know what people take. And even throughout school, I was told, Harriet's a jack of all trades, she'll be fine,
Right.
But that was actually a problem for me. I think because I'm quite an interested person that I can always force myself to care about anything.
Okay.
And suddenly I was sitting in this meeting with these quite big accounts fussing about, oh my God, the perfect call center technology and how are we going to price the model and this, that, and the other. I just thought, what has happened to me? And it freaked me out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that kind of freak out moment that I was like, okay, this is a decision. Either I lean into this and I become this person. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? The company I was working for was wonderful. I had incredible management, part of an awesome team. But the content for me wasn't what I felt it could be. And I almost thought like this ability to care about lots of things is definitely a strength, I would say. But in some cases, it can be a weakness because it makes me just mold myself to whoever I need to please, I suppose. So then I thought, well, what if you take this passion I have of fitness and try and create something that will make a bit of money, and maybe it will work, maybe it won't. But I've had 4 years of corporate experience to fall back on, and let's see what happens. So yeah, that was the one meeting, the one moment.
All right. That's quite a big step to take, though, to decide that you're going to leave, if you like, the safety or the comfort of corporate world to go off and do your own thing. So did you do some planning and preparation, or was it like, I'm just going for this and you just decided that's it, tomorrow, this is what I'm doing?
So I need to be honest with you, I am quite an all or nothing person.
Okay.
What I did is not what I would recommend
Okay.
other people to do. And people have come to me and said, oh, what's the best way of going into it? And I'm like, not the way I did. So I just kept on working in my corporate job until, like, to be totally honest, like, I was fully burnt out. I couldn't do it anymore. So I handed in my notice in January 2019. They asked me to do 2 months of my notice period, which was supposed to be 1 month. I was like, of course, yep, 2 months is fine. By the end of that 2 months, I was just kind of crawling to the office. Like, my motivation was so low. I was really frustrated. And then I burned myself out so much that I actually took 6 months off completely. And luckily, I'd saved up enough money to be able to support myself during that time. But I really felt like, because I went straight from school to sixth form to uni to the grad scheme, that I'd never had a gap year or anything. And I was like, I just felt so deeply within me, like, I need 6 months.
Right. Okay.
Think, okay, what do I actually want? Because I want to make sure that I take the next step, not because I've fallen into anything, because I've chosen it for the right reasons. So I actually took 6 months completely off work. In that time, I completed an Ironman, which was great. And I did some careers counseling, which was actually incredibly valuable for me. And I think those two things combined together really helped me understand what my why was. Ironman training is very long and lonely, so you've got a lot of time to think, which was actually very valuable time. And the careers counseling was fantastic in terms of understanding why personal training, why fitness. And I think that meant that when I started off in my first job in the fitness industry in September 2019, I had a better understanding of myself than I'd ever had before.
And where does this interest in fitness come from? Were you always, from a young age, into doing things and being active and being out and about, or something you discovered a bit later?
So I like to say I was brainwashed from a very early age. So my dad's a GP and my mum is a nurse specializing in diabetes. So I don't really have a choice. But as well, I think that comes with an immense sense of privilege. Like, I was such a tomboy growing up. I was always outside in the fields, getting muddy, competing with my brother over who could jump over the gate the highest or run the fastest and things. And I think actually those two things of being a tomboy and understanding about health from a young age made me so aware of how good fitness can make you feel. Actually, now I'm like, obviously I talk to women about, fitness and their goals, and how fitness is so much more than just looking good. And having conversations with people who haven't had that background makes me realize what an immense privilege is. And that's what I want to share with people, essentially.
And I read on your website, one of your blogs, that fitness starts with nutrition, not about the exercise, right? The exercise is just a small part of that. So what do you mean by that? And where was that moment? Because a lot of people, it's like, you got to start running, or you got to start doing this, you got to hit the gym, and they lose their motivation very quickly because they're not seeing the difference. And it's an interesting perspective to say, start with your nutrition first, and then think about the exercise on top of that.
Yeah, so I could talk about this all day, honestly. So a lot of people decide to start training because they want to look a certain way. Let's call a spade a spade. Often aesthetics is the main driver for people. Then they start, maybe they join a gym, or they do couch to 5K. Yeah. And often when you start doing exercise when you haven't done previously, it just means your appetite is massively increased. And then alongside this is this weird thought process that lots of people have when they first start training, which is like, well, I've been for a 5K, so I can just eat whatever I want today.
Yeah.
When the sad reality is the calories you've burned in a 5K is the equivalent of like 3 apples.
Okay.
So, it's very, very easy to overeat when you first start training. Whereas actually, if you look at nutrition first and you educate yourself on how to nourish your body, almost treating yourself like an athlete, right? Like making sure that you're getting good pre-exercise nutrition, post-exercise nutrition, plenty of whole foods, plenty of protein, plenty of water. That will make you feel so good in terms of energy levels, sleep, digestion, that training will come easier. And most importantly, you'll get physical aesthetic results sooner. And we all know that we need a little bit of carrot and we need a little bit of stick. And sometimes feeling better in your clothes, lighter numbers when you step on the scale can be what you really, really need to kind of push you to continue with that motivation going forwards.
Wow. That's so important. And I mean, we all kind of know, right? You got to eat well, but actually, how many of us actually do eat well? And your point about eating whole foods and, not so processed foods, it's something we all aspire to, but it's not always that easy. So what's your recommendation to someone who's thinking of starting a journey to fitness and wants to feel better? And we'll explore a bit about feeling better and what that actually means to people in a moment. What would your recommendations be as a kind of starting point? Here I am, 50-year-old man. I think I'm fit, but I also need to do a lot more. What would be your starting point for me?
So I'd say 2 things. I'd say education and sustainability. Okay. So you've got to educate yourself on why you're doing these things, why I'm asking you to do these things, and why I'm asking you to maybe not do so many things like, I don't know, drinking too much red wine or sitting too much during the day, whatever that might be. Because understanding the why behind it means that you're much more likely to continue and do it. Now, second to that, and I don't know which one is more important, maybe they're just equally important, is sustainability, right? This is why New Year's resolutions are a complete waste of time.
Yeah.
We can't hope to just suddenly overhaul our habits just on a whim one day, right? Like that James Clear Atomic Habits book is fantastic. And I think it changed a lot of people's, the way they view about lifestyle change from this. But honestly, that 1% rule is, I probably think, the most important thing out of everything. Start gently, start with something that feels so easy. It's just minimal effort, and then build things from there. So, lots of people's low-hanging fruit look very different. It could be like not snacking between meals. That could be the one thing that you commit to every single day. Do that for 2 weeks. Okay, cool. If you've done that, then how about incorporate protein into 2 of your meals per day? Excellent, fantastic. Okay, do that for 2 weeks. Then we put on another layer, making sure that you have, 50% of your plate is vegetables for every single meal. Okay, great. And then we layer it on top of that. So in the EMPWR Method, which is my company, we basically have different phases. So every 4 weeks, you enter a new phase and you're building on the education and the habits that you learned in the previous 4 weeks. And genuinely, that's why it works.
Yeah, and Atomic Habits is such a great book. And I was just, as you were talking now, I was just reminded of my own journey using the Atomic Habits principle for Couch to 5K, because I decided to do that. And in Atomic Habits, he talks about just put your running gear on. You don't even need to go out type of thing. Just put it on as a starting point. And there was taking that principle that got me actually starting to run, because I hated running as a kid. It was one of the worst bits when it was the games lesson at school, and it was like, we're going to do cross country. But do we really have to? So for me, it was a challenge, a mental challenge as well as physical challenge to do the Couch to 5K, and Atomic Habits definitely helped. So your process is very much layering one thing on top of another once people have started to understand and get into that new habit. Is that right?
Totally. And it's about them proving to me that they're ready to go on to the next stage, right? And I think with coaching, 80% of the time, you have to be someone's cheerleader, and it's positive reinforcement. And it's like, let's go. Because again, more and more studies show if you reinforce habits positively, you're much more likely to do them, right? Like telling people off doesn't really work.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I always have that 20%, which I call the whip cracker. And sometimes it is about let's flip and go. And if I've noticed I've had a client where they've had a couple of check-ins where they've maybe been a little bit lackluster, that's when we come down and we're like, okay, come on now, prove to me that you are committed to these goals, not just interested. But you saying about the atomic habits, like that's such a wonderful example, and you should be really, really, really proud of yourself for that, because something, I don't know if you did this when you were encouraging yourself to go on the run, but something else that I think James Clear talks about is about just telling yourself, I'm just going to step outside.
Yeah.
Just going to step outside and just walk for 5 minutes. Okay, maybe I'll run for 60 seconds. Blah, blah, blah. And we use that kind of mindset in terms of getting people into the gym, because the gym is such an intimidating environment. So it's like, just go and say hi to the receptionist. Just hop on the treadmill for 5 minutes. Just do your cat, cows and rotations and see how you feel. And just never really thinking more than 5 minutes into the future. And it's amazing what that does.
Yeah, people are intimidated, you're right, by the gym. And they're intimidated also sometimes to take on a personal trainer or a coach or something, because they're scared that they're going to be forced to do things outside of the comfort zone. But breaking it down into that, spend 60 seconds running, 5 minutes walking, or a few minutes on the treadmill, or saying hello to the receptionist, that makes it so much easier to do, and that makes it so much more engaging in terms of how you engage with that resource. So, I mean, that's what you've said there is very deep in terms of the actual thinking process behind that, Harriet. You touched on earlier knowing the why and your why. So what was your why? What was it that you kind of came to as being your why in terms of setting this business up versus staying in the corporate world or doing something else?
My why is definitely linked to my privilege and wanting to use that privilege to help as many people, mainly women. And that's just because, Sanjay, I feel like to be an expert on anything, you do need to have a niche, and you need to lean into that niche. Like I've always been a girl's girl, and I think, things like training around your menstrual cycle, pre and post menopause stuff, like it's hard to cater for everyone. So I do tend to train more women than men, even though I do train some men.
Yeah.
But my whole thing was I want to help as many women as possible feel how I feel when I finished a run or when I finished a workout, and feel those endorphins and that sense of confidence and pride. And like, I finish every workout by saying out loud, I love you, body, or thank you, legs, if I've done a run. And it's like, as women, we are taught that we are, we have to be smaller. We are the enemy of our body. Our body's always behaving in a wrong way to some extent. And I just want to stop that so much, and to make as many women as possible look in the mirror, and not even about aesthetics, Sanjay, but just as a performance standpoint, be like, my body is amazing. Think about everything that my legs have done for me today, my heart's done for me today, and I love myself for that. And to come to fitness from a place of self-love and self-compassion, rather than, hair shirts and self-flagellation, which I think so much of the industry is based on, which I hate.
With a passion. I could just tell that. You hate that with a passion. So, you started this in 2019. How did COVID affect your business?
Great question. I think with all things like COVID, it's either like a sink or swim moment. And I am so grateful to the clients who I had. So basically, so COVID hit in March 2019, 2020, when that was it, I actually qualified as a PT in March 2020, which in a way is it's the worst possible time to try and set up your own business. But what did everyone start doing in COVID? Running, because they had nothing else to do. So I kind of pivoted, and I was going to, start being, female body recomposition, helping women get healthy. But I just pivoted slightly, and I was like, okay, I've done 5 marathons, I've done triathlons, Ironman. I'm not specifically qualified in running technique, but I've actually done a lot of running, being taught by lots of running coaches myself. Let's see what we can do. So I basically built in running and running injury prevention as a key part of my offering. Did tons of education on and reading and stuff about, how that works. And essentially marketed myself as a running coach throughout COVID. And because no one was spending any money in COVID,
Yeah.
All we were allowed to do was to go outside for an hour a day. We were sick of being indoors, just speaking to our nearest and dearest. So actually, I got a really great client base during COVID from people who were up for, looking at running technique, but also building in things like squats, lunges, press ups, the body weight movements you could do as part of their training. And, I still coach some of those people today. So it's pretty wild. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise in some ways, that it helped you build a clientele in maybe a different form to what you had thought of, but still gave you that opportunity.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it really helped because when I started at One London, which is the gym that I still coach out of, I started there in September 2019 as a receptionist when I was doing my PT qualifications.
Okay.
So from September 2019 to March 2020, I was a receptionist essentially at gym.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, Sanjay, those 6 months are the proudest I've ever been of myself in my whole life. Like going from a corporate salary, £8.50 an hour, cleaning up towels, cleaning gym equipment, waking up at 4:30 in the morning to open the gym for 5:30. Like it was really, really hard. It was really hard. And then COVID hit, I qualified, and then it meant when the gym reopened, I came back not as a receptionist, but as a PT with already a full roster of clients. So it was a very clear distinction, which helped me learn. But it was tough. It was tough.
But tough, but I suppose honest work that you felt you were doing something different, right, for them. So I get that. You talk about the ripple effect as well. And what's the ripple effect that people who've kind of gone through your program or your coaching and helping now, what's the ripple effect for them in their lives and their families and their friends and beyond?
Yeah, there are so many wonderful examples that I could talk you through. Just as kind of like an overall, of course, it tends to be confidence, self-awareness, being able to stick up for themselves, consistency, tenacity, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I've actually got a wonderful, wonderful example of a client, and she gave me this feedback last week, and I would just love to share it. So this lady started with me online. I've actually only ever met her face to face once. So she joined, the online platform. And obviously, I've been coaching her one-to-one online from March. She started when she was on her maternity leave, right? So she'd had a baby. She was 6 months postpartum, ready to lose the baby weight and get back into feeling more like herself.
Right.
So we had, probably about, 4 or 5 months where she was on maternity leave and, she lost 10 kilos. She's so strong now, squatting 60 kilos, deadlifting 70 kilos, having fantastic physique transformation. But 3 weeks ago, she went back to work as a solicitor in a well-known law firm. She sent me a voice note the Wednesday on her first week saying, Harriet, the way I'm standing up for myself when people are asking me to do jobs that I shouldn't have to do, the confidence I have to speak up in meetings, the way I'm delivering presentations and introducing myself to my, my new partners and my new clients, is unrecognizable compared to how I was before I went on maternity leave. And she said, it's all down to almost using the gym as a rehearsal space to step outside of your comfort zone, to prove to yourself that you're stronger than you think you are. And also, every single time I set her a challenge in her weekly check-in, and she arrived to meet it as an opportunity for her to prove to herself that she is stronger and more capable than she thought she was. And just having such a clear translation in her going back into the working environment, like I had tears in my eyes listening to that voice note. It was amazing.
Yeah, that is amazing. And that transformation, there's the physical transformation, as you highlighted, the ability to deadlift, 70 kilos and the like, but the mental, emotional, psychological transformation is probably much more impactful than necessarily the physical. I suppose the two are linked in some ways, because as you say, feeling good about your body, you feel good about your confidence and everything else, but it's probably much deeper mentally than it actually is physically.
Yeah, and I think the mindset side of things is just something that I want to explore more and more in terms of my own qualifications and upskilling myself, and also training the other Empower coaches that I now have on the platform.
Right.
Because the way that I like to talk about it is, we've got, I would say the Empower method is based on 3 pillars. So you've got fitness, nutrition, and mindset. And they are actually all of equal importance. And the more research and education I'm doing, the more I just think that actually mindset is more important than fitness and nutrition. And just using lots of kind of techniques, almost like CBT style behavior techniques on certain clients. For lots of people, nutrition is a way to self-soothe and a coping mechanism. Okay, cool. So how do we use little kind of thought pattern behavior change techniques to help improve that relationship with food? And then, as we say, the ripple effects from that is just enormous.
Yeah, that's true. So, as you know, the title for this podcast series is Success Matters. Can't even get my words out today. Success Matters. What does success look like for you?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So this is actually something that I need to continually remind myself of because, of course, as a small business owner, I do have, financial targets and goals that I want to hit. So there are, of course, financial goals, but more and more, I'm just starting to realize that the more you focus on your clients and the more kind of client obsessed you are, the revenue takes care of itself in terms of, churn rate, retention, new clients, all that great stuff. So if you'd asked me this a year ago, my response would have probably been more financial. Now it hasn't really got anything to do with that. Success for me as an individual is having a balanced life where I feel like I can dedicate myself to my work, my clients, my husband, my family, my friends evenly. But from a business perspective, success truly is having as deeper impact on as many women's lives as possible. And I say deep because the way that I look after my clients is saying, okay, I want to teach you things that you can do for the next 2 months, 20 months, or indeed 20 years. And as evangelical as I can be about that, that is success to me.
That I think it comes across in the conversation that you do look much more deeply into people than, or looks to make an impact much deeper than necessarily someone who is just going to say, right, now go and do 10 sets of this weights or whatever, right? You're doing it for a reason. And you said earlier, the why behind it is really important. So thank you for that. I always ask previous guests to ask a question for my next guest. So the previous guest asked,
what has been the single biggest lesson you've learned in life? And with hindsight, how would you handle it differently?
Okay, I think I know what it is. The biggest lesson that I've learned is to listen to what my body and my intuition is trying to tell me about a certain situation.
Okay.
Because I know I'm quite stoic, right? And at the risk of blowing my own trumpet, my husband often says that I'm more driven than anyone he's ever met.
Right.
But I don't think that's always a good thing. For example, when I was in the corporate world, my body was trying to tell me that I was not living in accordance with my values for a long time. But I just being like, you can do this, come on, you went to university, you have to, make this a success, da 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 da. And what happened? I carried on until I couldn't carry on anymore and I was completely burnt out. And similar things have happened since I've started my own business, where my body's been trying to say, relax, calm down, you need to take a break. And I just keep on going and going and going. And now what I'm desperately, Sanjay, trying to change is listening to my body when I do need to take a break and a step back and an early night and all this, and trying to understand, okay, what's my body trying to say and how am I going to respond differently to how I've responded in the past? And I heard something recently, which was, and it comes back to the title of the podcast is, Success Matters. Success is a balanced nervous system. And that's something that I've been trying to remind myself recently. Success is balance. Success is a balanced nervous system. And not only acknowledging when I feel like that, but behaving in a different way when I do.
And have you recognized any triggers or points where you think, actually, my body's trying to tell me something, I better listen to my body?
Countless triggers. It would be really, really hard to drill it down into 3. Sometimes I'll give you one. When I realize that I'm dreaming about work all the time and I wake up at night having trying to solve a problem in my head about work. That's the biggest I love. You need to calm down now.
Yeah, dreaming about work is usually not a great sign in terms of your ability to switch off, right? It means you haven't switched off. So yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. And thank you for the reflection back on what success means, right? The balanced nervous system is, that's very true. Then you're congruent with your values, I suppose. That's what it means, right? And you touched on that about being burnt out because the work you were doing wasn't in line with your values. So that's an important lesson to take as well from this. Do you have a question for my next guest?
Yes. Now, I'm going to tell you my one, but I'm wondering if it is too similar to the one that I was asked. But you can, of course, let me know and I another one. So my one is, talk through an event in your career that initially felt like a failure that now feels like one of your biggest wins.
That's a good one. I like that one. We'll go with that one. So talk through an event in your career that initially felt like a failure, but now is one of your biggest wins.
Yeah.
Wow, perfect. Oh, that's good. Do you have something like that? An example of your own?
Yes, I really, really do. I think that obviously whenever I'm speaking to someone new about joining the community, we have a discovery call. And at the end of that discovery call, we talk through price and how it works and whether they want to sign up or not. And I had an absolute August was just really, really challenging. No one really wants to get a fitness coach in August, right? Everyone is on holiday. And so I'd be having these calls. I think they'd go really well. And he was like, oh no, look, I'm going to Ibiza for 2 weeks. I'll message you when I get back. Okay, cool, fine. And often they might not, or things will change. And I got to the end of August and I remember speaking to my mum on the phone and thinking, I'm terrible at sales. Something's gone wrong. Everyone's saying no to me. And I was so in it, Sanjay, that I could not see the wood for the trees.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, obviously we're now kind of early October, end of September. September has been the best month for the business that I've ever had, which is awesome.
Right.
And now I have basically decided on those months, especially August, when it's a seasonal thing, it completely makes sense. Next year, Sanjay, I'm taking August off. I'm going to go on holiday. I'm going to close. I'm not even going to take any discovery calls. I'm, of course, still going to coach. I'm going to say all new clients will start in September because, linked back to what you're saying, I need a break as well.
Yeah.
And that, to me, that feels like a really big win because that's something that doesn't come naturally to me, accepting that sometimes you need to take a step back and be okay with that.
Yeah. And of course, August, people are thinking about their all-inclusive holidays and how much they're going to overeat and overdrink. And then they come back and think, actually, I need to do something about that now. So it makes sense as to why. So you're beating yourself up about something that was kind of out of your control in some ways, right? That people are ready to go off on their holidays. They're not ready to think about, employing your services and taking you on as a coach. Yeah. So,
And taking it so personally as well, which is never wise when it comes to business. They must not like me. They must think I'm not a good coach, but I am a good coach. So, we don't do any of that anymore.
Yeah, no, that's great. So, Harriet, we're kind of at the top of our time now. If people want to find out more, where should they go? How should they get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the best port of call really is Instagram. So having a little look, my handle is Harriet le Seve Coach, and either sending me a DM there or even just, liking a few posts and things, and we can get chatting from there. I do also have a new website, which is www.theempowermethod.com. Empower spelled EMPWR. That is in its baby phases. It's still being developed. So if you go on there and you think this is a little bit rusty, that's why. So Instagram is definitely the best port of call.
Okay. And is the Empower Method something you've developed yourself, or is it something that's licensed that other people do as well?
So it's something that I've developed myself. So the Empower Method, my company name, and that is basically what I'm talking about when we're talking about the fitness, nutrition, mindset. That's the company I've developed, and that is growing in wonderful ways now.
Right, that's great. Well, that's brilliant. Thank you. So, Harriet, we've come to the top of our time. Thank you very much for this conversation. It's been a fascinating conversation, and to be fair, when I think someone as a personal trainer or fitness coach, I just think of someone who's going to be at the gym that's going to berate me for not being able to lift a certain weight or not following the thing that I did. And And for me, it's been really insightful to understand your approach and the EMPWR method that you have, where you're thinking of the triumvirate of all three things, not just one thing. So yeah, it's great. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much for your time, Sanjay. It's been lovely.
If you'd like to find out more about how you can find your success, contact me at info@successmatterscoaching.com. That's info@successmatterscoaching.com.